Hi, I'm Matt with eTrailer, and today we're going to be talking about the Yakima Roof Rack System on top of our 2022 Ram 1500. Now, this is going to be a great option for you if you're running out of space in your cargo area, your bed, or you have a tonneau cover in the back and you can't get a ladder rack on top of it. This is going to solve that solution and give you another area to put cargo on top of. This is going to be comprised of 3 parts. The first part is going to be our 60-inch crossbars on top. Now, these are going to be the HD ones, so they're going to have a very high weight capacity and are going to be very sturdy. We're also going to have this T-track on top with this weather strip that goes on top of it to prevent any debris from getting in here and help reduce that wind noise. And then at the very end of it, we're going to have these anchor points. These anchor points are going to be great if you need to tie anything off, anything like a kayak. And then we're going to have the base that connects to our crossbar from underneath. And if you look right here, we're going to have this circle. And what that is a plastic core that you can get replaced with a Yakima lock core. And that Yakima lock core can get key-alike to any of your other Yakima accessories. If I remove this, you'll see we have all the hardware underneath. So that's nice that we do have this end cap to cover all of it. And then we can also see how our bases connect. Now we're going to have this base and clamp system. That clamp's just going to grab onto your gutter, and this base is going to have a rubber base to it that sits in this channel over here. Now, I'm not a big fan of this base on how it fits on the Ram 1500, just because this is a little bit wider than this channel we have, but it's still going to give you a secure fit. Now we can get some measurements on how it's going to sit up here. So if I go from the top of our roof to the bottom of our crossbar, that's going to be 3.5 inches. So that's going to give you an idea, if you plan on putting on any clamp-on accessories, how much space you have. That should be plenty of space to put on most clamp-on accessories. Now for the total height is going to add to your system, from the top of our roof to the top of the crossbar, that's going to be about 5.25. So that's something to think about if you're going through a low hanging area. What I'd recommend doing is taking the total height of your car plus your crossbar so you know what areas you can make it under. And then if you have any accessories on top of that, make sure you include that measurement as well. Now we're going to talk about the overhang. It's going to be very minimal, so you're not going to be likely of hitting your head on it. Now I will say the counterpoint to that is you're not going to have a lot of space to put any clamp-on accessories at the very end of here. If you have anything like a ski carrier that you want closer to the side of your truck, so it's a lot easier to get that stuff off, then that's going to be the downside of this. As far as what you can put up here, you're going to have a weight capacity of 220 pounds for the system itself, but what I recommend doing is checking what your roof is rated for. Then after that, going from the lowest component. You're also going to be able to put your T-channel accessories on here. That's what I'm going to recommend you use, because if you try using clamp-on accessories, you will be able to use them, but some of them might not be able to fit around these thick bars. Overall, it's going to be a great option for you if you do plan on using a ladder rack and you want to put on any really long items like lumber, kayaks, or even ladders. So you'll have 4 points holding those longer items up. Now, it's also going to be a great option if you have a tonneau cover and you can't use a ladder rack. So if you want to store any additional cargo that doesn't fit in your bed, then this is going to be a great option for you too. As far as the installation went, it is pretty straightforward. It's just something where you need to pay closer attention to the instructions. But if you need a hand with it, just stay tuned and it will help you out with it. Now to kick off the install, we're going to layer everything. So we're going to have our crossbars, and behind that we're going to have our towers and the end caps that go with them. And then we're going to have our fit kit, which includes the clamps and the bases. You'll also have this included Allen key with a torque device on the back of it. And what I recommend grabbing is some tape measures and some tape to make this a lot easier. Now when you get your towers, you might notice that this plastic holder and this metal block isn't in here yet. If it is, you're good to go, but if it isn't, how you just put this in is just by matching up the shape of it with this hole, putting it in at an angle. And you notice we have this ridge at the front side. I'm just going to apply pressure until it clicks into place. With it in place, I'm going to grab that middle block, and I'm going to put it on this bolt that's in here. Now, you'll notice if I want access to that middle bolt, I got to get past this tab. And how I get past that tab is by turning it around and pulling this safety tab. And with that off, you can see that bolt is showing through now. Now I'm going to put the metal block on the other side, lined up with that bolt, and then screw it on. We don't want to do this completely, just slightly where it's making contact, because we're going to have to make adjustments later on. After you've completed this step with this tower, just repeat that same process with the other one. Now when you get your towers, they might not have this plastic holder in it yet, and this metal block not in it yet. So how you do that is just by taking the plastic piece, lining it up with that hole. You'll notice we have this tab on the front side. We'll put it in at an angle and then apply pressure until it clicks into place. Next up, we'll grab this middle block and line it up with this bolt on here, just so that hole is lined up, and just apply pressure. Then you turn it around, pull this plastic tab, your safety tab, then finally we'll flip it around, and we'll see this bolt that's in this channel right here. We'll just put this Allen key in here and just tighten this slightly. We would just want to tighten enough where it grabs onto that metal block, because we're going to want a gap underneath it still. Now we're going to grab our crossbar, make sure it's flipped upside down so you can tell if it has this ruler on this side with this channel with this bolt sticking out. I'm going to take that bolt out using our included Allen key, and the trick to do this is once it's loose, you can grab your crossbar, flip it over, and catch that bolt and put it aside. Next up, I'm going to take this end cap off, and then I'm going to put my first tower on in the opposite direction that I need, lining this middle block with that channel. Then I'm going to slide it all the way down to the other side, just roughly placing it. Next up, I'm going to grab our other tower and put it in the right orientation, making sure it's making an L shape just like this. And repeating that same process until it sticks on there. And finally, just make sure you put this end cap back on. Now for the next step, I'm going to reference our instructions to get the measurements we need between our two towers. So what I'm going to do is come over to the crossbar, and I'm going to use that ruler to line up the front of our tower with where it needs to be. Once there, I'm going to grab our Allen key, make sure that security tab is pulled out, and tighten this bolt just slightly. Just enough where it's not going to move around if I'm grabbing the crossbar, but enough where if I need to make any adjustments. Now the next step is getting our pitch and toe settings, and you can find those in your instructions as well. In our case, for the rear and front ones, that's going to be on setting 2 and B. And what setting 2 and B is on these center lines. So we want to make sure that our bolts match up with that. Starting with the pitch, I want to make sure it's on the center line, and if it is, I'm going to tighten it a little bit more. Now to change our toe, it's already in the correct position, but if for some reason you do need to change yours, we're going to put this base on, and you want to make sure this arrow is facing out away from the center of the crossbar, matching up these two plastic channels with this middle bar until it clicks into place. Once it's clicked into place, you can actually push on this either direction to change that toe, But we want it in the center, so I'm going to make sure it's centered, and then tighten down this bolt the rest of the way. Now we're going to roughly place our rear crossbar up here. Now when you are putting on your front crossbar, you want to make sure you put that 10 inches away from your windshield. Now, for putting on your rear crossbar, you want to make sure that is 32 inches away from the front of your front crossbar. So I'm just going to roughly place it up there now, and then I'm going to get that measurement afterwards. And that measurement is just going to look like this, going from my front crossbar to the front of my rear crossbar. Once you have that measurement, then go to the other side and make sure that's the same measurement so everything's squared off. Now we can check how things are sitting up here, and things aren't looking good right now. So what we want is the base to sit on this black track. So what we're going to have to do is take off the crossbars and bring our towers in just slightly. Now before we take off the crossbars, what I recommend doing is grabbing some painter's tape or masking tape and marking where the front of your base sits. And once you have that mark, then you can take this off, and when you place it back up here, it's going to be a lot easier. Now these bases are in the right place, sitting in the center of this black strip. Now I'm going to grab our clamps, and in our case that's a B10. And what we're going to do is open up this access door, slide this clamp in here with that hole that is going to grab on to your drive bolt. Now in some cases it won't fit for right now, so what I'm going to do is come back through with an Allen key and loosen both of these up. Because what this is going to do is going to allow our clamp to stick further out and further away from the side of our vehicle. As you can see, it moving right there. Now I can slide this clamp underneath that drive bolt where it has a hook that I grab onto it. And it still looks like it needs to go out just a tad bit to go around that gutter, just like that. Now I'm going to start with my swing bolt to tighten it back in. You might have to do some adjustments so it fits right underneath that gutter. And what we want for this side is for it to wrap around and just make contact. And then we're going to go to the other side and repeat that same process. And then we're just tightening it enough to where it's going to start clicking on your torque device. Now something I will say about this fit is it's a pretty tight fit. We had to do some working around to get this clamp to fit on there just by pulling on the crossbars just a little bit so we could get that full coverage on that gutter. But it still was able to get on there. And once you have both sides tightened completely, then you can put this access door back into place along with the safety tab on top. And our last step is just going to be putting on this end cap. The best way to do it is to put it on at an angle and then just apply pressure until it clicks into place. And now what I recommend doing is just doing a good shake test. Make sure nothing's moving, and if it doesn't, then you're good. And you can put whatever accessories you have up there. But if you liked everything you saw today, that was just a look at the Yakima Roof Rack System on top of our 2022 Ram 1500.